All right, ladies and gentlemen, so as we take a look, we're going to be working on chapter 2.1. This whole chapter is all about solving equations, and if we look, we're solving one-step equations today, and that's our goal. We're going to be using addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. This is going to be super easy for you guys. So let's get started and talk about the different properties of equality. It says here, if I have A equals B, if I have two numbers that are equal to each other, if we have like x equals 3, well, then the positive or addition property of equality just says if I take A and I add C to it, that should be the same thing as if I take B plus C. So if I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other side, and that's going to keep it equal. Okay, same thing with subtraction. If I have A equals B and I subtract some number C, well, I got to do it to the other side to keep it equal. Same thing happens when I do multiplication. If I do A equals B here and I multiply this guy by C, then I have to do it to the other side as well. I got to multiply B by C. Last but not least is division. If I divide by C over here, I've got to divide by C over here. It's the only way to keep it equal. Okay? So the idea is we're going to use those ideas to solve each equation. And then it says check your answers. Sometimes you can just check your answers. I don't need to see this work, and I'll just show you how to do a few of them. So as we take a look, I have z minus 15 equals negative 8. The idea is we're trying to isolate this z value. This is our variable that we're trying to solve for. So the idea is like we got to put this guy in quarantine. He's got COVID, so we got to put this guy all by himself. Well, to move the 15 over, to get it to cancel, all we got to do is add it over. Because negative 15 plus 15 cancels each other out and leaves me with z. And guys, those are my z's. I put little slashes on them so you can see them and tell them apart from my 2's. And then I have negative 8 plus 15, which is just 7. And that's my answer. So this is where I can check it. You do not have to do this. This is just something that you can do. So as I check it, I'm going to plug that z back in and just check it. Is 7, z is 7 minus 15 equal to 8. It's a negative 8. And I take a look, 7 minus 15 is negative 8, so I just checked it and it did work out. Okay? So we work on number 2. This one reads negative 9 minus p equals 30. Okay? So as we take a look, the thing that we want to do is want to get this p by itself. Now there's lots of different ways to do this. Okay? And in this case, I'm going to show you just a quick little trick. You could add the p over, or I'm going to add this 9 over first. And now what I get is negative p equals 30 plus 9, which is 39. So the reason why I added is because negative 9 and 9 added together cancel. And now I've got 30 plus 9 equals 39. The last step is I have negative p equals 39. Well, I want to solve for p. So the last thing I'm going to do is basically change both of these signs. You can think about it as dividing over a negative. And we get 39 divided by negative 1 is negative 39. And that is my final solution. Again, I'll show you one more time. If you want to check this guy, you can. This is not something that you have to do. Just take the original equation where it was negative 9 minus 30 minus p equals 30. And I'm going to put in that negative 39 here. Well, in unit 0, we talked about anytime I subtract a negative, it becomes positive. So this is negative 9 plus 39, which is 30. So it does work out. 30 is equal to 30. Okay. All right, so I take a look at number 3. I've got y plus a negative 12 equals negative 5. Now, I don't really like how this one's written is because I see a plus sign and a minus sign together. Well, anytime I add a negative, it's really subtraction in disguise. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that plus sign. And now I'm just going to solve for y. I'm going to move this negative 12 over by adding it. So So I add 12 over, and I get y equals negative 5 plus 12, or 12 minus 5, which we should know is 7. Okay. This is where you can kind of plug this back in your head. 7 minus 12 is negative 5, so it works out. So 7 is a perfect answer. Now, from time to time, you guys might run into some word problems. So as I take a look, all right, so as an airplane descended 550 feet. So again, I have an airplane up in the air. Don't make fun of my airplane. All right, it's up in the air, and then it starts going down some distance. Okay, it's descending. So it's descended 550 feet to reach a cruising altitude of 2,700 feet. What was the plane's original altitude? So I want to know what this guy is. We'll call that x. So I want to represent my unknown. X is going to be my original altitude. All right, so if I'm thinking like visually, we went down this amount. So we went down 550 feet, and we got to 2,700 feet. Okay. Now visually, what's happening here? Trying to find this value, right? And that's my original altitude. Well, I went down 550 feet. So that's subtraction. It's descending. That's a negative thing that's happening. Now I've got equals 2,700. So this is where I want to go ahead and solve this guy. I want to go ahead and move this guy over. So we add the 550 over. And you can use your calculator if you need to. 2,700 plus 550 ends up to be 3,250, and we're talking about feet. Okay, anytime you guys have a word problem, make sure you use your units. Use your units. Okay? All right, so if this is class, I'd let you guys try a few of these out. I do want to finish this page here and then answer some questions on the back, and then let you guys work on your IXLs. So as I take a look, I look at number 5. I've got r plus 21 equals negative 2. I need to move this 21 over using subtraction. Always opposite sign. If it's addition, I use subtraction. If it's subtraction, I use addition. So I'll go ahead and cancel those out. And now I take negative 2 minus 21. The idea is if you owe me $2 and you borrow 21 bucks, now you owe me 23 bucks. Okay, you can plug that back in. Negative 23 plus 21 is negative 2, so it works out. Okay. All right, so we take a look at number 6. When I take a look at number 6, I've got negative 10 equals negative p plus 5. The idea is I want to get this p by itself. I need to move the 5 over first. If that's a plus 5, I use the opposite sign, subtraction of 5. If you owe me 10 bucks and borrowed 5 bucks, now you owe me 15 bucks. Negative 15 equals negative p. Well, I don't want to know what negative p is. I want to know what positive p is. So the only thing I got to do is either change my signs, or the idea is dividing by a negative. We learned the other day, negative divided by negative is a positive. 15 and then equals p. Okay. Now some of you guys are going to write that as your final answer. That's okay. I always like to write this on your paper. Yoda. You guys remember Yoda from Star Wars? He talks kind of backwards. This is kind of backwards. 15 equals p. We prefer to see it like this. Okay. P equals 15. Get your variable equals the number. So again, Yoda talks backwards. Hard to see that dark side is. All right. So this is backwards. We want to see the variable first. Okay. All right. So let's finish up number 7. Number 7, I've got a minus negative 10.1 equals 15.3. Again, I do not like this one because it has two negative signs next to each other. Well, if I'm subtracting a negative, those two negative signs will become a positive sign. Okay, just like in real life, if I subtract something negative that's happening to you in your life, that becomes a positive for you. So it's real life stuff. I'm going to make this a positive 10.1 equals negative 15.3. The last thing I got to do is go ahead and move that 10.1 over. Because it's plus, I'm going to subtract it over using subtracting the 10.1. Using subtraction. So negative 15.3 minus 10.1, we end up with a negative 25.4. So that's the final answer for that one. Okay. All right. Last but not least, I got Ronnie. Good old Ronnie. He needs to sell 120 candy bars for a fundraiser. He has already sold 85 bars. How many candy bars must he sell in order to reach his goal? Okay, so I always like to use X. I'm a big fan of X. X is the number of candy bars still to sell. There still needs to be sold. So number of candy bars still need to be sold, okay, to reach his goal. Well, right now, he's got 85 candy bars. He still needs to sell X amount. I don't know what that is, but when I add those two things up, I want it to be 120. So that's why I have the number of candy bars sold plus the candy bars that still need to be sold. If I add those up, that equals 120. Well, the last thing I want to do is just solve for X. I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 85. That's a positive 85, so make sure you subtract it. And if I take 120 and I subtract 85, that will give me 35 candy bars. And that's how many he still needs to sell. Okay? You can double check. 35 and 85 together is 120. Works out perfect. All right, so we've done a lot of addition and subtraction to both sides. And now if we take on the back, we want to look at some multiplication and division. Okay, so let's take a look at those. So as I take a look at, I got the first equation is r divided by 5 equals 10. Again, we want to do opposite signs. So the opposite of division is multiplication. I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. If I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other. The reason I'm doing this multiplication is so that that 5 and 5 reduce. One's on top and one's on the bottom. And now I get r equals 10 times 5. This is 50, or 50. Okay. Again, if you want to check this, I'll go off to the side and check it with you. Take that 50 and plug it in. You get 50 divided by 5. Is that equal to 10? And for sure, 50 divided by 5 is 10, so it works out. Now, sometimes they give you guys some mixed numbers. And mixed numbers are hard to work with. So that's why we try to convert those into impropers. Okay? So reminder, we're going to take 3 times 2, which is 6, and we're going to add 1, that remainder. So this is really 7/3. Yeah. Okay? Now I'm going to set that equal. I'm going to take 9 times 3 is 27. I'm going to add 1, that's 28. Okay, and that's over 9. So all I've done so far is I just converted 2 1/3 to 7/3, and I converted 3 1/9 to 28/9. Okay? Well, this is 7/3 times n, and I could divide over by 7/3. Okay? Now, one thing when you're dividing by fractions, we talk about, well, you can divide by a fraction, or you can multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 7/3 is 3/7. And that allows me to do this problem pretty easily. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/7 so that these cancel. I get m all by itself over here. And now over here I want to reduce, just like we did in unit 0. If I take a look, the 3 and the 9 are diagonally. One's a numerator, one's a denominator, so that's 3 reduced. And then 28 and 7 reduced leaves me with a 4. So final answer here, I have 4 over 3. And guys, for your final answers, I prefer that you just leave it as an improper. I think impropers are easiest to work with, and then converting to a mixed number is an additional step, which we do not need to do. Okay? All right, let's take a look at number 11. As I take a look at number 11, I got 4 equals a divided by negative 2. The opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 2. That way these guys cancel. I take negative 2 times 4, that's negative 8, and that equals our a. A. All right, if you leave it like that, again, it's not terrible. It is backwards though, so let's rewrite that. We don't want to be like Yoda. Little green guy from Star Wars. Hard to see the dark side is. So write that as a equals negative 8. All right, we got 4 more here. So now we're switching gears. And now what I notice is I got 24 equals negative 2 times a. Well, I want to get rid of this negative 2 times. So the opposite of times is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. And as I show work, I got 24 divided by negative 2 is negative 12, and that equals a. That way these guys cancel out. Again, rewrite it. A is negative 12. You want to check that, you can. So check it. Review on checking. I've got 24 over here, and that equals negative 2 times a, which in our case is negative 12. Negative 2 times negative 12 is 24, so it does check out. So as I take a look at number 13, same idea. This is negative 6x, which is negative 6 times x. The opposite of times is division, so I'm dividing both sides by a negative. These guys cancel. This leaves me with negative 11/6. Again, you can just leave it like that. I'd prefer that you don't do mixed numbers. Impropers are fine, just as long as you reduce them, like what we did on number 10. Number 14, again, we have 7 times w equals 49. So again, let's get rid of that 7 by using division. Divide it over, 49 divided by 7 is 7. Plug it in, you can do that in your head. 7 times 7 is 49, works out perfect. Okay? So when we do this stuff in class, you're always like, well, when would I ever use this? Well, again, we're going to start doing area and stuff like that in geometry and real life when you're painting rooms and stuff, and you got to figure out your length and your width. So as we take a look, they talk about area of a rectangle with a length L and a width of 3 centimeters. The area is 28 centimeters squared. Find the length. So back in the day when we talk about area of a rectangle, that's L and that's W. Well, area is just taking the base times the height, or in this case, length times the width. Length times the width. And then we plug in the things that we know. We know that the area is the centimeter squared one. That's 28. The length is what we're trying to find, so we're going to call that L. And then the width was 3 centimeters, so I'm going to use 3. Now, I could put the 3 here, but we're used to seeing the 3 over here, so I'm going to put it on the left-hand side. And now, I'm going to go ahead and simplify. I'm going to go ahead and divide over this 3. And we get 28 divided by 3. So 28 thirds, if you will. Okay. 28 thirds, you're okay to leave. That does not simplify at all. If you want to, you could write this. I would accept this, but it's always nice to have some numbers put to it. So I'm going to actually change this into a mixed number. This is where you would want a mixed number, so you have some idea of what is 28 thirds. Well, how many times does 3 go into 28? 3 goes into 28 9 times, right? And if you need to, go off to the side. 9 times 3 is 27. Subtract that from 28, and that leaves me with a third. Okay, and then again, that's in centimeters. So it's about a 9 1/3 centimeter. is what your final answer is. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That is all I have for you today. Good 20 minutes of notes. Take a look at Canvas. You guys will have an IXL assignment. There's about 2 or 3 of those to do, and then we're going to come back tomorrow and do day 2 of notes. Okay? You guys have a great day. You guys stay out of trouble. I'll be back tomorrow. Be good for the sub.